Hello, everybody. I'm Mel Doerr, the Aloha Shirt Psychic. I don't have my Aloha shirt on today because it's so cold here in Chicago. I've got like a heater at my feet, and I got the heater cranked up here at the office. It's just a cold wind blowing. And this time of year, because the days are shorter, the west side of my office has windows and it gets really cold. The summertime is like an oven, so there's no happy medium. Um, I just want to come on briefly and do a shorter video today. Number one, I am so excited for my sister from a different mister, as I call her, and my friend, a wonderful friend, Linda Grindle. She's got some exciting news, uh, but I'll let her share the news. I just want to say congratulations to her. And I want to thank her for everything she's done for the psychic community and for all of our followers. She's an incredible psychic. She's a wonderful human being. She's a nice person and a dear friend. So, Linda, uh, I thank you because it's because of her that I even started doing or pushing my YouTube channel. And I just wanted to thank her for my success on YouTube. Without her, there's no way I would have been able to have done this. And Linda, if you're watching this, I love you very much. And I just can't begin to say how honored I am to have you as a friend and as a colleague. And thank you, thank you, thank you. She's incredible. So, yay. Okay, with my uhs and ahs, I just heard that the CEO of United Healthcare was shot and killed in Manhattan. He was murdered. And normally I don't comment on these sorts of things. And by the time you get this, this might be old news. But I do feel that the murder was premeditated. I think that there were other people behind it. This is my intuitive impression. And intuitively, I see the perpetrator being caught. I see the number three probably within the next, it could be 3 hours, it could be 3 days, the perpetrator will be caught. So, here again, I have to speak out about senseless gun violence in this country. It's getting way out of hand. And unfortunately, with the regime of T. Rump coming in, I don't think for the next couple years much is going to be done on the idea of gun control. But I keep saying this. What I do see is during the midterms, the Democrats taking back over the House and the Senate. And at some point, once T. Rump is out of office, I do see more stringent gun control laws coming into being. I believe in people's right to carry guns, but I don't believe in people's right to own assault weapons or to go out on the streets and shoot each other. That is just a no-no. And there's so much violence in our society, and I think that's reflective of who is running the country. It's reflective of us as a society. I abhor violence. I abhor gun violence. I love to target shoot. I'm a really good shot at target shooting. I don't like killing animals. I don't believe in killing, but I just like to target shoot as the sport. However, I think, and I'm all for responsible gun owners, all for that. But we really don't need assault weapons. I'm not saying that the CEO of United Healthcare was shot with an assault weapon. I'm just simply saying that I see a lot more stringent gun control laws coming. Thinking about Trump in office, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I do not see him finishing his term in office. Why? I don't know yet. But before the election, I had this foreboding that something just wasn't right. And I had predicted that something big was coming. And I really think it was the election results. I'm convinced, as I've said before, that Trump really didn't win the election. There was interference from Putin, there was interference from all over, but I am convinced that Trump did not win this election. I do not see him finishing out his his term in office. If J.D. Vance does become president, because there will be a Democratic House and Senate, then he would end up being a lame duck. The next presidential election, I see a very strong Democrat, almost somebody like Wes Moore of Maryland, uh, being the president and being able to lead us through all the damage that Trump and his regime will have created. We will weather this storm. I keep saying when I was at Abraham Lincoln's tomb over the summer or the springtime, um, his spirit came to me and told me that justice shall prevail. Democracy, our democracy will last, and that our union, our union will stay together. He didn't quite say it like that, but remember, justice shall prevail. Our democracy shall stand, and our union uh, shall hold up. Anyway, I know we're fearful. I get that. But we can't let that fear paralyze us. We have to move forward. We have to let them hear our voices and not be hung up in the fear. I too am fearful, but I'm not going to stop doing my work. I was talking to Linda Grindle this morning, and we brought up the idea of what if, certain media outlets like this one are taken over and they're telling us that we won't be able to talk about politics or to talk about the things that we feel are unjust, specifically with the orange one. They can try that, but they won't succeed. I feel that we'll still do our YouTube shows, and I feel that we'll still be able to do our and talk about our political predictions and our world predictions and those sorts of things. So we'll keep plugging ahead on this. I'm looking here about, a lot of people are up in arms about Biden pardoning his son. And the people that are yapping about it, like the MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and other MAGAs, really don't have a right to say much because their person elect was convicted of 34 felony counts. They put a convicted felon in office, and yet they have the nerve to say something about Hunter Biden, who signed something he wasn't supposed to sign. The hypocrisy just fries me. And the hypocrisy is going to get worse. The vitriol is going to get worse. But I see a bunch of people coming forward who are not afraid to speak up, that will stop and say this hypocrisy is wrong and this vitriol is wrong, and bring people back to their common sense. As far as mass deportations are concerned, he will try it. Trump will try it. But my feeling is it's going to be tied up in the courts for so long that he's not going to be able to get by with what he thinks he's going to get by with. I am not a Republican. I don't ascribe to that politics. But I do feel that there are Republicans that are going to be in the House and in the Senate who are patriotic enough and who love this country enough not to let Trump get by with a dystopian, autocratic dictatorship. And they love the country enough not to allow that whole 2025 thing to go through. So Trump doesn't have as much power as he thinks he's going to have. As far as some of the candidates that he's putting forth for, like the Matt Gaetz, like the head of the FBI, things like that, he's doing it because in my psychic opinion, he's trying to get people aggravated and he's trying to get them riled up. Trump likes that. He likes the dissension. He likes the chaos. And he's also doing it to try to punish his foes. Uh, as the director of the FBI that he wants to put in place has often said he'd go after the people that criticize Trump. I think his last name was Patel, Cash Patel, I think is his name. So Trump, I think, is trying as a litmus test, but I think what he's doing is putting people in that are so questionable and causing so many feathers to rise that ultimately behind the scenes he can really get in the people he wanted because people will think, oh, it wasn't as bad as the candidate or the person that he wanted to put in. That's what Trump is up to. It's a big manipulation. And I don't see it working all the way. I don't. I still think there's people in the Senate who will say, nope, we're not going to go along with this, and who are not afraid to stand up to Trump. And I think the Senate, the Republican Senate minority or majority leader after January won't have a problem with taking sacred votes. And that's to predict those people who would be afraid that if they voted publicly of Trump's wrath. I see people starting to grow a backbone again and common sense coming back to this country. So I am sorry, I just had to stop the video for a second, but I'm back. Um, Current news is that a Florida sheriff withdrew from consideration as Trump's pick to head the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency. And my feeling is, I don't know, I think on some level he didn't agree with everything that Trump was saying and the stuff that Trump didn't want to do. I don't know if the guy's a Democrat or Republican, but I know that he drew criticism from MAGA for arresting a pastor because that pastor wasn't following the mask mandate in 2020. So it looks like this guy is not all a Trumpster. I think he made a wise choice not to go with Trump's suggestion for him as nomination. I think that we really need to pay attention to our First Amendment rights because the MAGAs are going to try to limit those for us. And it looks as if they might win a few battles, but remember, they will not win the war. I see this country going into a constitutional crisis, which, by the way, will be resolved because Abe Lincoln keeps coming through and saying, our union shall stand. Justice shall prevail. And our democracy will endure. The First Amendment rights, the most important one is freedom of speech. And they're trying to do away with that. Like anybody, for example, with this Kash Patel, who Trump has wants to appoint to be the head of the FBI, or is it the FBI? Yes, the FBI. I think would be like another Herbert Hoover, and that's dangerous. You know, anybody that would criticize Trump, anybody higher up, that they would come under investigation or scrutiny and be persecuted, that's against their First Amendment rights. And even though SCOTUS, a lot of them were placed by Trump on SCOTUS, and a lot of them think that, that a lot of people think they would go with everything Trump wants. They won't. They'll stand up. They'll withhold our freedom of speech, our First Amendment rights. Trump will replace a few justices, but I see the three on the court, the three ones that were placed by Democrats. I see them staying on the court. I don't think they're going to resign over the next 3 or 4 years. At some point, I see SCOTUS flipping. I see more justices on the court. And at some point, a lot sooner than later, after this thing with Trump is all behind us, I see Roe v. Wade being upheld. I see a lot of things that this SCOTUS has done being overturned. They're going to try to mess with our freedom of speech. The other thing is freedom of the press. And people like Elon Musk are trying to mess with that. He's wanting to buy up all these news outlets and all of that so he can control the press. I think he just donated 125 million pounds or something like that to a party in Great Britain, a conservative party, and that's him trying to control their government as well. But I see legislation passed here and in other countries to keep things like that from happening and to keep people like Elon Musk from buying elections. So he might think he's going to purchase more media outlets, but a lot of them would refuse to sell to him. So, my feeling is he just wants to control all the governments, many of the governments of the world, so that would put more money in his pocket and, to be the king of the world, if you will. That's not going to work. So they'll try to mess with our freedom of press. And for a while, it even looks like they're succeeding because a lot of these media moguls, were in support of Trump. But I see all that changing. I see antitrust laws at some point being reenacted so that to keep things from happening that are happening now. It'll take a while, but we'll get there. The other thing they're going to try to mess with is freedom of religion. The Constitution prohibits government from establishing a national religion or favoring one religion over the other. So when Trump talked about Muslims, didn't want Muslims coming here, is banning Muslims from coming here, my feeling is that could be against First Amendment. I'm not a lawyer, but they're going to try to mess with that too. And really, they almost started this Christian nationalism. And I believe in the separation of church and state. So for a while, it looks like these so-called Christian nationalists are going to keep winning. But at the end of the day, at least the 40% of the people that voted for Trump, or 50%, they're not going to run this country. I see an end at some point to this American apartheid. So, if they try to say that the national religion is this or that, I don't think they can do that. I'm not a lawyer, but they're going to try to mess with freedom of religion. They're also going to try to mess with our freedom of assembly. These are all under the First Amendment, freedom of assembly, meaning that we have the constitutional right to a peaceful assembly. They'll try to mess with that, but here again, they won't win. It'll look as if they win a few battles, but they won't. If they win a few battles, but they won't win the war. Freedom of petition is another thing they're going to try to mess with. Freedom of petition means that you have a right to ask the government to fix or change something. Or fix or change a policy that you disagree with. You have the right to ask the government to do that without fear of reprisal from the government. Well, the person that Trump wants to take over the FBI, Patel, I think it's Kash Patel, has come right out and said that anybody who has criticized Trump or fought against Trump, that he's going to come after. Those weren't the exact words he used. That's just me paraphrasing. So anybody that might speak up against a policy that Trump tries to institute or his cronies trying to institute that we don't like, then he's going to come after us. That's against the First Amendment. It's against the freedom of petition. I'm not a lawyer, but I see a lot of this, Kash Patel, that's the guy's name. I see a lot of these things being taken up by the Supreme Court, and Trump is not going to win on those things. Kash Patel has openly vowed to find ways to punish Trump's enemies, but I don't see him succeeding on that. So they're going to try to mess with our First Amendment, with our Constitution. But here again, I do not see them being successful. So there's some questions that you all had asked that I'd like to get to if I can. Um, and I'll just run through them quickly. And so one of them is Love Light Being says, do you see income-based housing assistance being partially cut or totally cut with HUD or USDA rural development? The answer is they will try. Yes, they'll try to cut those subsidies. But here again, there will be such an outcry about it, and they might cut them briefly, but there'll be such an outcry about it that ultimately they won't succeed with that. Um, people are asking about Trump's health. My guides have shown me dark clouds around Trump's head area, which means he really has to watch, I think, his health for like stroke or something like that. And here again, I keep saying this, and I've said it in this video, I do not see him finishing his term in office. At this point, I don't know why. I just don't see it. I'm not feeling it. I'm not intuiting it, if you will. Um, so, I think in the future, past presidents are going to come forward and say that Trump is a danger to the integrity and the security of the United States. And Linda Grindle says she sees, Trump still on the hook for treason or insurrection. Judge Meacham, he just stayed those charges against Trump. He didn't dismiss Trump. And I could be wrong on this. And if I am, I'll come forward and say it, but I don't see those charges being dismissed. I see them stay, which I think just means they're on hold. And because it's a state in New York, then I don't think that Trump could interfere in that. So anyway, at some point, I do see a lot sooner than later, within the next couple of years, Hakeem Jeffries becoming Speaker of the House, and he'll be phenomenal. A lot of people are nervous about Trump's tariffs. It's going to create inflation. It's going to create higher prices. I see a lot of price gouging coming with groceries and food and things like that, to the point where people aren't going to be eating out as much. They're not going to be buying certain foods because they're too costly. And that's one of the things we can do to stop Trump's tyranny, is to say, if you're going to charge us X amount of dollars for a chicken that we used to pay $5 for, and now it's gone up to 15 or 20, we ain't buying that product. So, that tells the grocers that we as consumers will no longer tolerate this price gouging. We won't tolerate it. So, if you all see certain prices going up for certain products, very simple, don't buy those products. And if enough of us do that, that'll send the message like, we're not going to do that. That's one of the ways, a huge way, that we can fight back. So, he's talking about tariffs on Canada, on China, and I think Mexico, which is really stupid because, as I said, it's going to create inflation, and then they're just going to put tariffs on us. So, he's even thinking of doing it to Germany. So he'll create a trade war, but it's a trade war he will not win. I see the economy going into a huge inflation, and I see the dollar devalued because of what he's going to try to do with Bitcoin. But that's, for a while, that'll look as if he succeeds, but he really won't succeed with the Bitcoin. I think we're almost going to be kind of near depression at some point, but not a full-on depression. I don't think it's that. So I think, with the trade tariffs and all of this and all of that, my feeling is Putin is behind a lot of that because it's his way to try to weaken the West and to weaken NATO, but Putin won't be able to do that. We are going to pay higher prices and the economy is going to get bad. Remember what it was like when Trump left office? The economy wasn't great. And we pulled out of that. Well, we'll have that same thing going again, but we'll be able to keep our house, our homes, buy our food, travel, um, and still have some of those luxuries. Um, all right. Um, so, all right, I'm just going down some of the questions here that you all have been curious about. Um, People are asking about Jack Smith. At some point, I got a feeling he might even be working for the Department of Justice or come back. And at some point, my light bulb just went on. And at some point, once Trump is gone and Vance is gone, I've got a funny feeling that Jack Smith would end up being, and my light bulb just went on really bright, would end up being the Attorney General or be asked to be Attorney General. So um, I see a lot of whistleblowers coming out about this election. And so that's going to cause it to be seriously questioned, as it should be. Um, so, okay. Hold on, just give me 1 second. Remember, Biden has done more than this for this country than any president since 1963. Trump doesn't care about the constituents. A lot of people who drank the Kool-Aid are saying that, can they change their vote? No. Once you voted, that's it. I promise you, though, we will weather this storm. We'll get through it. Um, so don't let them take your voice. Remember your First Amendment rights that I've just gone through, and we will get through this. Anyway, some people are worried about China invading the US. I don't see that. I don't see Russia invading the US. I don't see any of that. I do think we're going to be in a constitutional crisis. I don't see a civil war with blood and bullets, but a civil war more like kind of what's going on now, this polarization. Ultimately, that will be healed, but it's going to take a while. Anyway, congratulations to Linda. If you like my videos, please hit the subscribe button, thumbs up. Infomercial. I have openings for my trip to Peru next September. Yes, the economy will be okay by then. It'll be okay to go there. And openings on my Iceland trip for October. So come with us. You will have the time of your life. And they will be safe, by the way. Anyway, I wish everybody the beginning of a happy holiday season. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I'll be back soon with some more videos. So my goal is to hit 30,000 subscribers by February. So let's see what happens. Anyway, thank all of you all for your wonderful, loving support, and aloha and namaste.